Do you ever wish you could feel happier? Of course you do. We all want to be happy, right? So what if you could watch just one video and learn thousands of hours worth of research into the science behind happiness? This isn't going to be some generic yoga made me happy, so it'll make you happy too type video. No, I'm actually going to break down everything you need to know to live a happier life. Scientists have studied what works and what doesn't, and I think you'll be quite surprised by the results. Interested to know? Let's begin. So we have to start with money. We've all heard that money doesn't buy happiness. So why are so many of us still chasing it then? You probably in fact have a salary in your head and you've told yourself once you hit this number, you'll be happy financially. Am I right? Well, I've got some bad news for you. In 2008, researchers asked people what salary they would need to feel happy financially. Those earning 30K said they would need 50K to be happy. Those earning 100K said they would need 250K to be happy. Whenever a person's income rose by $1, their required income rose by $1.40. No matter how much money we make, we always want more. We become accustomed to it and we continually move the goalposts. So if that's the case, why even bother chasing money? In fact, does money even make you happy in the first place? Well, a study in 2005 looked into this. It turns out happiness does actually rise with an increase in income, but only up to $75,000 per year. After this, happiness actually falls. And interestingly, there was very little difference between earning 40K and 75K. It turns out once we've covered our most basic needs, food, shelter, clothing, extra money at this point doesn't seem to have much impact on happiness. Now it should be noted that if you don't have enough to cover these basic needs, more money does have a significant effect. But for the vast majority of you, extra money won't actually make that much impact. Maybe a little, but nowhere near as much as you expect. Okay, so that's money, but what about love? What about finding true love? Surely this would be a game changer, right? Well, in 2003, researchers followed 25,000 people over a 15-year window. They found that married people do tend to be happier in the first 2 years. But after that, they return to baseline happiness. And then they have basically the exact same happiness as non-married people from then on. So in other words, marriage doesn't seem to have much of any long-term impact, positive or negative. Now I do want to say, I would expect a good relationship versus a bad relationship will impact your happiness. But based on the research, it probably again won't make as much difference as you think that it will. How about being in great physical shape? That's gotta help, surely. Well, in 2009, researchers surveyed nearly 2,000 obese people over 4 years during a diet program. Surprisingly, the most depressed people at the end of the study were the ones who were successful at losing weight, while those who actually gained weight were the most happy. In 2011, other researchers found people who get cosmetic surgery tend to be less happy after the surgery. Now you could argue that maybe these people, they started off less happy to begin with, so that's why. Well, yes, they did start off on average less happy, but they also became even more unhappy post-surgery. Now this might all seem crazy, but the reason that money, love, and looks, they don't impact your happiness as much as you think they will, it's because you simply adjust to your new reality. So think about a car accelerating to 60 miles an hour. You'll feel the acceleration, your head will be pushed back. But once the car gets to 60 miles an hour, if you just maintain that speed from there, you stop feeling the effects. It's unfortunate to say, but this is the same for happiness. We love the beginnings of these pursuits so much because we're accelerating. But over time, we acclimatize and it all starts to feel normal. So that brings us on to the big question then. How do we stop getting used to things? How do we keep that fresh happiness? Hedonic adaptation. When we talk about getting used to the good things in our lives, and then those things stop bringing us fresh happiness, this is known as hedonic adaptation. And unfortunately, it affects us all. So how do you beat it? How do you stop hedonic adaptation? The first thing, you may not want to hear this, but the first thing is to stop buying as many materialistic items. Instead, start buying more experiences. In 2003, researchers asked people how they felt after they bought an experience or a material item. Consistently, people ranked the experience as far better for raising their happiness. However, when people were asked to predict which one would bring them more happiness, they mostly believed it would be the material item, not the experience. So why does this disconnect exist? Why is it that we think buying material items will make us happier than buying experiences when it just doesn't? The short answer is that we, you and I, we are terrible at predicting what makes us happy. We think we know what will make us happy, but we consistently guess wrong. This point is really important to remember because there'll be points during this video where you might think you know what makes you happy better than the research. Now, I can't 100% rule out that you're correct, but all I'd say is that the participants in these studies, they consistently guessed wrong and they were confident too. Now, another trick of the mind is called impact bias. Impact bias relates to the fact that we all have this terrible habit of overestimating how much future events are actually going to affect our happiness. In truth, good things don't make us as happy as we expect, and bad things don't make us as sad as we expect either. So in 2012, researchers asked students how they would feel if they received a grade lower than expected or higher than expected. Ranking their happiness out of 10, on average, students estimated they would feel 4.4 for getting lower than expected, or 8.3 for higher than expected. In other words, good grades would make them very happy, while bad grades would make them miserable. In reality, students felt 6.3 for bad grades and 6.5 for good grades. So they massively overestimated how much these future events would impact their happiness. And these findings have been replicated across many other studies too. In fact, this may sound mad on the surface, but sometimes getting something incredible can actually make us feel even worse than before. There is this phenomenon which we'll call the world champion fallacy. When asked how becoming world champion affects someone's happiness, whether this is Tyson Fury in boxing, Olympic athletes, or any endeavor in life, we find a consistent theme. While we'd expect becoming world champion would make someone the happiest they've ever been, after all, their dreams have just come true, in reality, they often spend the following weeks in a state of depression. So how can this possibly be the case? Surely they would be happy, right? Well, it normally comes from impact bias. These people have spent years believing that becoming the world champion would make a massive difference to their happiness. They pictured how happy they would be in this moment for years. When it doesn't impact them as much as they were expecting, they experience shock. They often have a revelation. They've spent all these years telling themselves, I'll be happy when I'm world champion. Once they become world champion, they have no excuses left not to be happy. And this point is so important because we are all guilty of this. We tell ourselves, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I'm a millionaire. I'll be happy when I get married. I'll be happy when I get this promotion. I've got some bad news for you. Whatever you've built up in your head as the thing that will bring you happiness, it probably won't. The world champion fallacy, it doesn't just apply to world champions. It applies to basically anything you've built up in your head as this giant catalyst in your life, which will suddenly make you happy. But I do have some good news for you, because there are things you can do which will raise your happiness, and raise it so much more than these things that you've built up in your head. And these methods, they've all been proven through research to be very effective, so you don't just have to take my word for it. Again, this is all based on the scientific literature. So the first habit is gratitude journaling. I keep this book in my desk drawer. Every day, I spend just 3 to 5 minutes writing down things that I'm grateful for in my life. Just 3 to 5 minutes, that's all. And I know this may sound like some new age kooky BS, right? Gratitude journaling, I mean, come on. But the data has shown it really works. In 2010, researchers had people either write down 5 things they're grateful for or 5 hassles in their life. Following up, they found those who focused on gratitude experienced improvements in happiness, had fewer illnesses and pain, and even ended up doing more exercise in the following weeks. You remember earlier how I said we all just seem to get used to the good stuff that we have? Hedonic adaptation. We only feel the acceleration, not the speed. The problem is, we're all wired to want more. Gratitude journaling is literally the opposite of this. The action of consciously taking in and noting down the good things we already have in our lives. This action begins to rewire our brains over time. Instead of always wanting more, always wanting the latest phone, wanting more money, better relationships, instead of that, you begin to appreciate what you already have. So I know on the surface this may sound like some new age BS. To be honest, when I first came across it, that's exactly what I thought. But if you actually think about it logically, it makes sense why it works. And the research clearly backs this up too. Best of all, it's free and it only takes a maximum of 5 minutes a day. So how exactly do you do gratitude journaling then? Well, it's pretty simple. Get yourself a notepad and just spend a few minutes writing down things that you're grateful for. And no, you don't need to write down big things. For example, I've previously written down that I'm grateful that this pen attaches to this notepad. Therefore, when I want to write something down, I don't have to go searching for the pen when I want to use it. Now, this may almost sound silly, right? Well, the reason this is effective is because you are surrounded by small wins like this on a daily basis. The problem is, you're not taking them in. Imagine if you could wire your brain to start appreciating these little wins that happen throughout the day. This, gratitude journaling, this is how you get there. Now, it's important that you don't just write things down though, you actually need to feel it. As you're writing, you need to cultivate this feeling of gratefulness inside of you. Truly feel it first, then write it down. Second is cut out social media. Okay, so you've probably heard this before, right? But I bet you haven't heard this before. Making more money, that has a positive 0.1 correlation with happiness. Social media usage has a negative 0.2 correlation. So what does that mean? That means that cutting out social media could raise your happiness by twice as much as making more money. So you could spend hours and hours working to make more money, or you could just cut out social media. It's actually twice as effective for raising your happiness. Why exactly is this though? It's because we all suffer from social comparisons. Oh, the neighbors have bought a new car. Well, I better buy one too. My friend just moved to a bigger house. I better do the same or I'm falling behind. These types of social comparisons are damaging to our happiness. Comparison is the thief of joy. But at least when you're talking about neighbors and friends, these are probably people roughly around the same level as you. The problem with social media is you're now comparing yourself to people all around the world, the most beautiful people, the most successful people, and they are just a few clicks away on your phone. So 25-year-olds today, they're beginning to feel like they're falling behind if they aren't a millionaire already. They think that 25, they should be a millionaire. Why? It's because they're watching videos of 19-year-olds who are. In reality, to be a millionaire at 25 would put you in the top 0.001% in the United States. In fact, to make it into the top 25%, you only need $18,830. Now, I bet this surprises you, right? I bet you thought to be in the top 25% would take a lot more than just under 19K. That's the problem with social media. It's skewing your perceptions of reality. Third is kindness and social connection, and these make a tremendous difference to our happiness. Now, I had a phase in my life where I didn't really leave the house much and I didn't see people. I was quite miserable. In fact, I developed agoraphobia after a few years of doing this, where I didn't want to leave my own home. So much so that I remember one day I was pushing a trolley through the supermarket and I had a panic attack just having people being nearby to me. Honestly, this is a really, really dark time for me. I was getting hardly any social connection whatsoever. So I forced myself to start going out more. To begin with, the goal was just to get outside. That's it, just outside. Start small. It doesn't have to be a massive change. After a few months, I started talking to people, seeing friends, and ultimately rebuilt my life. Trust me when I say, the more sociable you can teach yourself to become, the happier you'll be. And this is the same with kindness too. The kinder we are to others, the happier we feel in ourselves. In 2006, researchers found that happier people have a higher motivation to do kind acts. They recognize kind acts more from others, and they generally exhibit kinder behaviors. In fact, by performing just 5 acts of kindness over the following week, people were able to increase their happiness by half a point on a 10-point scale. And here's the great thing, you don't need to do big things. The research shows that the size of the action doesn't seem to make much difference. So start incorporating just really small basic actions into your day and see how you feel. Hold the door open for someone. Let someone go in front of you in a queue for the bus. When driving, let someone in at traffic. I know, again, it may sound really trivial, but don't listen to your brain, because we already know how bad our brains are at predicting what will make us happy. Instead, trust the research and give this a go. Fourth is exercise and sleep. Okay, so I said earlier that losing weight doesn't seem to have that much impact on happiness. But this is probably because those people, they were focused on the end goal, not the exercise itself. In 2000, researchers found that exercising just 3 times a week was around 40% more effective for curing depression than taking antidepressants. And it's not just depressed people that benefit. All of us feel better after exercise. It doesn't matter what the exercise is. Just pick the one you enjoy and do it consistently. Now, when it comes to sleep, researchers such as Matthew Walker have consistently shown that sleep deprivation has a major impact on all of us. In fact, humans are the only animal on the planet who will forcibly keep themselves awake outside of eating or finding food. No other animal will force themselves to stay awake. So we all know how we feel better after a good night's sleep, right? This one is kind of common sense. So to give you something useful, let me give you a quick rundown of how to sleep well. There are 3 main cues you need to give your body in the hours before and during sleep. Number 1, darkness. Cut out all the lights in your room, get blackout blinds, or just wear an eye mask. But you need proper darkness. Most people have their room kind of dark, but nowhere near enough. Number 2, the cold. Think about it, our bodies are still basically the same as when we were cavemen. When it gets later in the day, it gets colder, and that sends a signal to your body to sleep. In fact, without this drop in body temperature, you will very much struggle to sleep, so keep your bedroom cool at nighttime. Number 3, a lack of noise. The daytime is meant to be noisy, the nighttime should be quiet. Now, for many of us, the modern world, it makes this a challenge. So there are 2 main solutions that you can pick from. Start wearing earplugs or play white noise at night. Once you send the right signals to your body in terms of darkness, cold, and quiet, remember that, darkness, cold, quiet, your body will naturally start to release the necessary hormones such as melatonin that will make you so tired you'll fall asleep easily. If you are still struggling with sleep though, here are some additional things you can try. Get morning sunshine. It helps to set your circadian rhythm so you can release the right hormones later in the day. Have a consistent wake-up time. A consistent bedtime is good too, but the wake-up time, that's the more important one. Try supplementing with magnesium, L-theanine, and myo-inositol 1 hour before bed, and also avoid caffeine or other stimulants after 2 p.m. As someone who's struggled with their sleep for years, this combination of habits, trust me, it's a game changer. Number 5 is good nutrition. Did you know that 95% of your serotonin is made in your gut? And if you don't know about serotonin, think of this as your brain's happiness currency. With 95% coming from your gut, it's not an understatement to say, get your diet on point and you will feel happier. Now, we all suit different diets though, so play around with it and take note of how you feel. Whichever way of eating makes you feel the best is probably also the healthiest for you. 6th is meditation. Now, you've probably heard that meditation can make you happier, but do you know why? So it turns out we all have this part of our brain called the default mode network. While much of our brain is specialized to certain tasks, this area of the brain, it's unfortunately running at all times. And this is a problem because it causes our minds to wander. In fact, in 2010, researchers found that even while we're doing activities, 30% of the time we end up with a wandering mind. As a result, we're less present and we don't enjoy the current moment as much. So how do we stop this default mode network from taking over? Well, in 2008, researchers brought in expert meditators and compared their brains to us normal people in a brain scanner. They found that the expert meditators had far lower activation of their default mode network. Importantly, not just while they were meditating, this benefit continued in their daily lives. 7th is to make big situation changes to your life. Okay, so all of the strategies thus far have been about your thoughts and actions. They've also all been free to implement. That's why this one is the lowest on the list, but I still think it's important to consider. For example, if you hate your job and you spend many hours a day in misery, making a change here can obviously make you happier. I think it's important to include this, as according to prominent happiness researcher Sonja Lyubomirsky, 10% of your happiness does still come from your life circumstances. Now, if you're interested, it turns out that 50% of happiness comes from genetics, 40% comes from your thoughts and actions. That's why most of the strategies we talked about are catered towards this category. And the final 10%, again, this comes from your life circumstances. Personally, I would say spend your time nailing down the first 6 strategies, as these focus on the largest changeable piece of the pie, your thoughts and actions. And then if you still feel like a change is needed, you can change your life circumstances, knowing that you've already tried everything else first. So for you now, your next step is to pick one of these habits and start implementing it today. After a month, you can add a second habit and so on, but don't add too many at the start. Don't try to overhaul your life on day one. Build slowly over time and you'll be surprised at the changes. So this video is based on a free video course that the University of Yale released called The Science of Well-Being. If you'd like to see the full course with many more details than I could include in this video, check out the link in the description below. Now, I just want to say I am not perfect at this. Of course, I don't do all of these strategies, and I'm nowhere near as consistent as I would like to be. But I have found that these strategies, if I can try to be consistent with them, they are the most impactful things of the many, many things that I've tried. I've tried chasing money, love, and getting in shape. So believe me when I say these strategies, they really are more effective. I also want to thank the YouTuber Hamza, as I discovered this course because of one of his videos. Say what you like about him, he's one of the few self-development YouTubers who actually talks about happiness and mental health. And these really are the foundations for any good life. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again very soon.